Here's your jaw-drop moment. 6 hitmen burst into a boxing weigh-in at the Regency Hotel in Dublin. They're not there to buy tickets or cheer on the fighters. They're dressed up like guards kitted out with AK-47s, and they storm the place like it's a war zone. And the wildest part? They end up shooting the wrong gangster. The entire plan, months of plotting, disguises, fake uniforms, derailed in seconds. What should have been a quiet way in before a boxing match instantly turned into one of the most infamous ambushes in Irish crime history. A weigh-in is supposed to be about pounds, muscles, and trash talk. But this one, it was about bullets, wigs, and pure chaos. And that's where our story begins. Alright, let's break down who's who in this circus. First up, David Byrne. He's 33 years old, from Crumlin in Dublin, and a known associate of the Kinahan cartel. On the day of the weigh-in at the Regency Hotel, he's standing near the front of the room when the gunman burst in. Within minutes, he's shot dead. He's the only fatality that day, but his death will spark an all-out feud. Now Daniel Kinahan. He's the son of Christy the Dapper Don Kinahan, and he's made a name for himself as a boxing promoter, setting up flashy international fights. But here's the twist: Daniel was believed to be the real target of the ambush, and by sheer luck, or maybe a warning, he had already left the hotel before the attack. That exit probably saved his life. And then there's the attackers, 6 men in total. They arrived in a stolen van. 3 of them stormed inside dressed in fake guards uniforms, carrying assault rifles. Another was in drag, wearing a wig and flat cap as a disguise. The rest stayed outside to handle cars and escape routes. It wasn't just a hit job, it looked like a full-on military raid. So yeah, one side wanted Daniel Kinahan gone. Instead, David Byrne ends up dead. And in 20 seconds, the feud between the Kinahans and the Hutches went nuclear. So picture this. It's February 6, 2016. The Regency Hotel in North Dublin is packed with boxing fans. Everyone's buzzing for the weigh-in ahead of a big fight. The air is all cameras flashing, promoters shaking hands, fans hyped up. And then doors slam open. Men dressed as guards storm in carrying AK-47 style rifles. The crowd freezes. Some people think it's a raid. Others think it's a joke. Spoiler alert, it's neither. Within seconds, the room turns into chaos. Shouts, panic, people diving for cover. David Byrne, standing near the front, gets hit and goes down. He's dead before most people even realize what's happening. Here's the kicker: the Kinahan cartel's main man, Daniel Kinahan, the one the attackers were actually after. He had already left the hotel. Wrong place, wrong time for Byrne. Perfect timing for Daniel. So a weigh-in that should have been about boxers flexing muscles ends up being remembered as one of the most shocking gangland hits in Irish history. Not exactly the fight fans signed up for. 3 days later, Dublin is still reeling from the Regency attack. The city's buzzing with rumors, front pages plastered with headlines, and everyone's pointing fingers. And then retaliation. On February 8th, Eddie Hutch Sr. is gunned down outside his home in Dublin's north inner city. Eddie was the older brother of Jerry the Monk Hutch, and unlike the cartel lads, he wasn't a high-ranking mob boss. He was a cab driver. But in this feud, being related was enough to make you a target. So think about that. One hit at the Regency and suddenly the body count doubles in less than a week. The whole thing stops being just a hit gone wrong. It becomes open season between the Kinahans and the Hutches. And here's your mini twist: the shooting of Eddie Hutch doesn't calm things down. It lights the fuse for a feud that'll leave at least 18 people dead over the next few years. A gang war born out of a weigh-in. Who saw that coming? Here's where the story stops being one headline and turns into a saga. The Regency shooting didn't just appear out of nowhere. The roots go back to 2015 when Gary Hutch, a nephew of Jerry the Monk Hutch, was murdered in Spain. That killing was blamed on the Kinahan cartel, and it lit the first spark in what was about to become an all-out war. Fast forward a few months and the Regency ambush blows the feud wide open. Suddenly, it's not just whispers about who controls the drug trade in Dublin or who has Spanish connections. Now it's families at war, street soldiers gunning for each other, and Dubliners waking up to headlines about yet another shooting. Journalists start calling it Ireland's own Game of Thrones. But instead of castles, you've got North Side pubs. Instead of swords, you've got axe and handguns. And instead of political alliances, you've got feuds that spill into weddings, funerals, and even local football matches. By the end of 2016, the feud had already claimed multiple lives, and the public knew this wasn't slowing down. What began as revenge in Spain now had Dublin locked in the middle of a cartel war. So the guards launch a massive investigation. They've got CCTV footage, witness statements, and even the van the attackers used. It looks like they've got their guy, Patrick Hutch Jr., nephew of Jerry the monk Hutch. He's charged with the murder of David Byrne. The case is huge. Everyone's waiting to see if the courts can actually nail someone for the Regency hit. The trial kicks off in 2018 and the evidence is laid out: disguises, guns, and eyewitness accounts. Patrick Hutch is accused of being one of the gunmen dressed up in those fake riot uniforms. And then plot twists. The case collapses. The lead detective in charge of the investigation, Detective Superintendent Colm Fox, tragically dies by suicide before he's due to give key evidence. The prosecution suddenly looks shaky and the trial falls apart. Patrick Hutch walks free. For the Kinahans, that was a gut punch. For the Hutches, it was a temporary win. For the Irish justice system, it was an absolute facepalm moment. One of the biggest gangland cases in modern Irish history just slipped straight through the cracks. So while Patrick Hutch walks, the guards set their sights higher on Jerry the monk Hutch himself. He's the 60-something-year-old boss figure, the man everyone whispers was behind the Regency hit. The Kinahans want him gone, and the state wants him behind bars. The problem is, Jerry's not in Dublin. He's chilling in Spain, so the guards get a European arrest warrant, and in August 2021, Spanish police grab him on the Costa del Sol. Classic monk move: he doesn't fight, doesn't run, just strolls out looking calm like he's heading for a pint. He's extradited back to Ireland to face trial for the murder of David Byrne. The media goes wild. Finally, maybe the Hutch side is going to take a serious hit. Except plot twist. In April 2023, Jerry Hutch is acquitted. The judges say the evidence just isn't strong enough. The state's big case against the monk falls apart in court. So after years of headlines, surveillance, and international manhunts, Ireland's most wanted man walks free. Meanwhile, the Kinahan cartel is still fuming, and ordinary Dubliners are left wondering if the monk can beat a Regency murder charge, who can actually be nailed in this feud. So let's talk about how this all landed with the public. The Regency shooting wasn't just another crime story, it was front page for months. The images were insane. Gunmen in wigs, fake guards with rifles, a boxing weigh-in turned war zone. It felt less like real life and more like a Netflix pilot. Irish media couldn't get enough. Every paper had splashy headlines. Talk radio was buzzing. Dublin pubs lit up with debates. Half the city suddenly thought they were detectives. It was the Kinahans, no, it was the monk. Everyone had a theory. And here's where it gets almost surreal. Daniel Kinahan, the man people say was the real target, keeps doubling down on his boxing promoter career. He's linked to big-name fighters, rubbing shoulders with celebrities, while still being named in international reports as a cartel boss. It's like if Tony Soprano started organizing AFC events and people just went with it. The Regency made true crime feel like primetime drama. People weren't just reading about gangland anymore, they were watching it unfold like binge TV. And for better or worse, it turned the Kinahan-Hutch feud into Ireland's most infamous soap opera. The Regency wasn't just one bad day. It kicked off a blood feud that swallowed Dublin whole. After David Byrne was killed and Eddie Hutch just days later, the violence snowballed. Over the next few years, at least 18 people were murdered in shootings linked to the Kinahan-Hutch feud. Some were hardened players, others were just relatives caught in the crossfire. Whole communities got dragged into it. Families living in North Inner City Dublin were terrified. Streets were crawling with guards. Houses were raided, safe houses exposed, drugs seized, and caches of weapons pulled from lockups. The state even set up a special Garda unit, the Special Crime Task Force, to deal with the scale of the problem. And it didn't stop at Ireland. The Kinahans were running operations in Spain and Dubai. The Hutches had their networks across Europe. Suddenly, what started as a grudge killing turned into an international cartel war. The feud made international headlines. Ireland wasn't just Guinness and green fields anymore, it was wigs, fake cops, and gangland funerals. The country got a reputation for mob violence that felt straight out of a gangster flick. And here's the kicker: all of this, the bloodshed, the headlines, the fear, it all started because of a weigh in for a boxing match. So here's the kicker: the Regency Hotel weigh in should have been about boxing. Fighters staring each other down, promoters hyping up the match, fans buzzing about the big night. Instead, it became the stage for a full-blown assassination attempt. But here's the irony: the man they were after, Daniel Kinahan, had already slipped out, gone before the first shot was fired. The attackers missed their prize, and David Byrne, a Kinahan associate, pays with his life. Wrong man, wrong moment. What followed was years of bloodshed, retaliation, and headlines that made Ireland look less like the land of sailies and more like a gangster's playground. Families buried sons and brothers. Communities lived in fear. The guards built entire task forces just to keep the body count from climbing even higher. And today, the Regency Hotel has been rebranded as the Bonington. New name, fresh paint, same walls. But everyone in Dublin knows you can change the sign out front, but you can't erase what happened inside. A weigh-in meant for boxers turned into a war zone. A feud that started in Spain spilled across Ireland and Europe. And the ghosts of that February day? They're still throwing punches.